Mr. Amari settled into seat 14C and took a deep breath. He tucked his favorite book into the seatback pocket and looked out the small, round window. He was heading home after a long journey, and the soft hum of the airplane engines felt like a gentle welcome. He smiled, imagining the warm dinner and the hugs from his family that would greet him at the end of the flight. The peace of the cabin was soon broken by the sound of clicking heels. A woman named Mrs. Sterling walked down the aisle, checking her ticket with a sharp gaze. When she reached row 14, she stopped abruptly. She looked at her ticket, then at Mr. Amari, and then back at her ticket. Her face twisted into a deep, cold frown, as if she had encountered something very unpleasant. Mrs. Sterling did not sit down. Instead, she reached up and pressed the flight attendant call button over and over again. When Elena, the flight attendant, arrived with a professional smile, Mrs. Sterling pointed a gloved finger at Mr. Amari. "I cannot possibly sit here," she declared in a voice loud enough for several rows to hear. "I demand to be moved to a different seat immediately. I shouldn't have to endure this for a whole flight." Elena looked at Mr. Amari, who remained perfectly still. He did not argue, and he did not raise his voice. He simply lowered his head and folded his hands neatly in his lap. Though the tips of his ears turned a bit red, Elena felt a pang of sadness in her heart. She believed that every passenger on her plane should be treated with dignity, regardless of who they were or where they were going. "I understand that you are unhappy with your seating arrangement, ma'am," Elena said, her voice remaining calm and steady. Mrs. Sterling huffed and crossed her arms tightly over her chest. "Good," the woman snapped. "Then do your job and find me another seat. Surely there is something better than this in the back of the plane, or perhaps in the front where people like me belong." Elena nodded and stepped away. "Please wait just a moment. I must check the manifest and speak with the captain," she said. She walked to the front of the plane and pulled out a digital tablet. She looked over the seating chart carefully, her finger sliding across the screen. She whispered a few words to the captain through the cockpit door, ensuring that her plan followed the rules of the sky. A few minutes later, Elena returned to row 14. The cabin had grown quiet as other passengers watched the scene unfold. Mrs. Sterling was already standing in the aisle, her expensive leather bag clutched in her hand. "Well?" the woman asked impatiently, tapping her foot. Elena offered a small smile. "I have found one empty seat, ma'am. It is a very special seat in first class." Mrs. Sterling's eyes lit up with a greedy spark. She began to step toward the front of the plane, smoothing the wrinkles out of her coat. "Finally," she muttered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "It's about time someone recognized my value. First class is exactly where I should have been from the start. Some people just know where they belong." But Elena did not move out of the way. Instead, she stepped past Mrs. Sterling and turned to Mr. Amari, who was still sitting quietly. She held out her hand to him with a respectful bow of her head. "Sir," she said clearly, "the captain and I agree. No one should have to sit next to someone who treats them with such unkindness. Please, follow me to first class. We would be honored to have you as our guest there." The surrounding passengers broke into a soft round of applause as Mr. Amari stood up, a bright smile finally lighting up his face. Mrs. Sterling sat back down in the cramped middle seat, stunned and silent. As the plane roared down the runway and lifted into the clouds, the lesson stayed with everyone on board. While money can buy a ticket, true worth is found in the way we treat one another.